things you need to know for the test? I don't think so. Telling you all the things you need to know for the test. And the tests are a little tougher right now because you got to take 2 at once, which I don't like and you don't like. And the best we can do right now. I mean, it's not unheard of. Lots of other programs do a test every couple of weeks. I just liked always doing one a week. But the scheduling is just too tough to do right now. All right, you ready to go, folks? Brunelling. All right, so Brunelling, high static load. So like if the airplane was parked and somebody dropped something heavy on the airplane, kind of a silly thing to happen, but the wheels were sitting steady and somebody pounded on the bearings, you could cause Brunelling. That's a high static load. Or somebody overloaded the airplane. You just kept putting on like 5 times what this thing's supposed to take. You could eventually put a Brunelling. You could put a dent in the bearing race. Okay, there's one. Oops, I'm not actually watching the chat right now. Where's my chat? Okay, a burr. And here is how I remember it. What do you do when you're done filing on your piece of metal in level 1 or cutting it, especially with a hacksaw? You end up with that little burr and you do deburring. Other than that, you cut your finger. So that is the sharp projection of metal left over from my cutting operation. This is one of the most common snags you will look for on an airplane. This and cracking are probably the 2 things I spend. I've written more defects for this particular defect, or cracking and maybe corrosion are the most common things that I've had to write defects for when I'm doing heavy maintenance checks. Chafing, right? What do you get on a hot day and you're walking around and your clothes are getting sweaty? You get chafing. Light pressure, continual rubbing, eventually will destroy all kinds of things. It's called chafing. All right, and you've all got your pens and pencils out, right? You're writing these things down, or you logged in so that you can do it again and write all these things down, these 11 items or whatever it is. This one's a little bit more complicated, and I usually talk about it for a couple minutes. Okay, so fretting. Fretting corrosion. Yeah, you can do that. However you want to do it, fretting corrosion. Now, this is kind of a weird thing, and I talk about it for a little bit. If you toss an aluminum can and a steel can outside in the rain, which one will corrode away first? The steel, right. Which is the more noble metal? Table of activity. Metals. Let me pull this up. Iron, and where's aluminum? Let's remove this down here. Okay, which is more, so the steel will disappear faster, right? But take a look at this, how to remember the activity series. Here's aluminum, magnesium, sodium, like these are really active metals. They tend to corrode quickly. And there's iron and gold way at the bottom. Like you can leave a gold bar outside, it'll never corrode. Copper, will last a while, it might turn a bit green. Iron here is kind of in the middle, and then there's aluminum. Aluminum is more reactive than iron. So why does aluminum not corrode when we put it outside, and iron does? Does anybody know that? Was it covered in level 1? Or I think it was. Does anybody remember? The crusty layer. Yeah. Aluminum corrodes almost instantly when exposed to oxygen in the air. But it makes a hard crust of aluminum oxide on the outside of the aluminum, right? And then the oxygen can't penetrate that. Whereas steel, even though steel is actually more corrosion resistant naturally than aluminum, steel tends to corrode in these weird pits and valleys, and it just the oxygen is always able to find some fresh iron to eat away at. So we end up with the steel rusting away. Now, fretting is a unique blend of chafing and corrosion. You see it like with rivet heads or anything with time you got aluminum rubbing on something. What would happen to our aluminum if we exposed it to oxygen and it made some aluminum oxide, and then we took something and we rubbed that aluminum oxide off? What's going to happen next? Aluminum, it will corrode again. And then we rub it off. We expose some fresh aluminum. Then it corrodes again. So it's kind of a mix of corrosion and chafing, and we end up with these black streaks of aluminum oxide trailing behind our rivet or whatever part it is, and we call it fretting corrosion. There you go. And I always remember this because I had an old Dodge pickup truck with chrome plated bumpers, and I drove into a post one day and bent the bumper, And from that day on, the chrome plating was flaking off. So small pieces of metal or plating were flaking off of my bumper. It was a stupid design. This pole was like 2.5 feet tall, and you literally could not see it from the cab of my truck. And I went to a job interview, and I parked, and I pulled up, pretty close to the pole, and I think I saw it when I drove up. And then when I went to leave, I of course didn't see that there was a 2.5 foot post in front of me, and I drove straight into the post. And then I had flaking to deal with. All right. Well, process of elimination. We know it's not fretting because I just talked about that. Scoring. Scoring is multiple grooves side by side. Gouging. Gouging is like a deep scratch. There's a scratch and then there's a gouge. And the gouging is just a deeper scratch. I may not have covered this in the lecture. I'm not sure. Sometimes I forget to mention it. Okay, which one would be animal cruelty? Yes. Right, no throwing crabs. A lot of people are going to get upset with that. Yes, can't throw crabs. Yeah, how much not? Why is it cruel to throw them, but not to put them in boiling water and eat them? Now, when I catch crabs, I never. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Making an animal suffer for no reason is wrong. See, I don't throw them into boiling water. I don't like that. I kill them. I think a little bit more humanely. Plus, it seems kind of gross. Like you're boiling all the crab bits. I'd rather like clean off the bits that I didn't want to eat and just boil the meat part that I wanted. So, more fresh when you boil them alive. Well, no, you kill them and then throw them in the boiling water. I mean, there's actually crab poo in the water then, right? Okay, loss of metal by grit or sand. I think of beach erosion. I think of beach erosion, and that's where I remember the name. So we get erosion on the leading edge of fan blades in gas turbines a lot. Anywhere we've got grit or sand getting in there, we can. Okay. The only one that kind of comes close is peening. Peening, I always think of a golf ball. A golf ball is very regular hollows and it's meant to be there. That's peening. Pitting is what we didn't want. And I think of like pitting corrosion. Like a steel can gets pits on it, right? Rust pits all over it. All right, near the end. Localized change in color. Yep, think of the ball peen hammer. That's another way. Yep. This one's pretty easy, I think. And we're getting fast answers, so apparently you folks do too. Yes, staining. Staining, a change of color. Like what you get in your clothes. What was the last one? I don't know what you're looking for there, Braden. We can take a quick scan through it afterwards. We'll do that. And click over to edit and we can take a look. Oh, the last one, yes, pitting. Partial break. Yes, a crack. A crack is a partial break. Hasn't broken off yet. We're done after this. I got to take attendance. Nice. All right. That's enough of that. I'm going to leave.